Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel. Before we dive into today's story, we just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you all for watching. We truly appreciate your support. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It's totally free, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest stories. Now, with all that said, let's jump straight into the story.
The flickering light above buzzed like a trapped wasp, casting long, distorted shadows inside the elevator. It was a sorry excuse for illumination, barely piercing the oppressive gloom that seemed to cling to the metal walls. I swallowed, the metallic tang of fear coating my tongue. I hated this elevator. Everyone in the old Hollow Pines apartments did. They called it the Soul Snatcher. My name is Paula, and despite my better judgment, I was about to ride the damn thing. Hollow Pines wasn't just old. It was ancient, a Gothic monstrosity built back in the 1920s, complete with gargoyles leering from the roof and a history whispered in hushed tones. Most tenants stuck to the stairs even if they lived on the upper floors. But tonight, after a particularly draining double shift at the diner, my legs felt like lead. I took a deep breath and jammed my finger on the call button. The elevator groaned into life, a wheezing, rattling symphony of decaying machinery. It sounded less like it was ascending and more like it was dragging itself from the depths of hell. The doors shuddered open, revealing a cramped, wood-paneled interior. The air inside was thick, heavy with the scent of dust and something else, something indescribably wrong. Going up? I asked, forcing a lightness I didn't feel. Inside, only one person stood, a gaunt man with hollow eyes and skin the color of parchment. Dave, I remembered his name was. Lived on the 5th floor. He didn't acknowledge me, just stared straight ahead, his expression utterly blank. It was unsettling even for Dave, who was always a bit off. 5th floor for me, I said, stepping inside. As the doors grated shut, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The ascent started with a lurch that made my stomach flip. The cables whined and the elevator vibrated violently. I gripped the handrail, trying to ignore the growing sense of unease. Rough ride tonight, huh? I said to Dave, hoping to break the silence. He didn't respond. His eyes remained fixed, unblinking. As we passed the 2nd floor, the lights flickered again, plunging us into near darkness for a split second. When they returned, I gasped. Dave's face, it was different. His skin seemed even paler, stretched taut over his skull. His eyes were vacant, devoid of any light. He looked dead. My heart hammered like a drum against my ribs. Dave? Are you okay? He didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even seem to breathe. He was just a shell. That's when I understood. The rumors about the elevator weren't just ghost stories. They were warnings. The Soul Snatcher wasn't just a creepy old lift. It was draining the life force of its passengers. Panic flared. I hammered on the emergency stop button, but nothing happened. The elevator continued its agonizing climb. I looked desperately for the emergency phone, but it was gone, ripped from the wall, leaving only frayed wires. We were trapped. Floor 3. The air grew colder, the scent of decay stronger. I felt a strange tingling sensation, a pulling as if something was trying to be wrenched from within me. I clung to the handrail, fighting against the feeling, trying to hold on to myself. Fucking stop. Please stop. I screamed, my voice cracking. Dave remained motionless, a horrifying testament to the elevator's power. Floor 4. The pulling intensified, becoming a burning ache in my chest. My memories flickered, faces of loved ones blurring at the edges. I could feel my energy draining away, leaving me weak and listless. I thought of Amanda, my best friend who lived across the hall. We'd planned a movie night, take-out pizza, a rare evening of relaxation after our grueling jobs. The thought of never seeing her again, of never laughing with her, fueled a flicker of defiance. No, I wouldn't let this thing take me. Floor 5. The elevator shuddered to a halt. The doors slid open, revealing the dimly lit hallway. Dave shuffled out, his movements stiff and robotic. He didn't look back, just continued walking down the hall, a hollow echo of the man he once was. I stumbled out of the elevator, my legs weak and trembling. I leaned against the wall, gasping for breath, trying to regain my composure. I felt empty, drained, like a battery that had been completely discharged. But I was alive. Somehow I was still alive. I had to warn Amanda. I stumbled to her door and pounded on it. Amanda. Amanda, open up. It's me, Paula. After a moment, the door creaked open. Amanda stood there, her face etched with concern. Paula? What's wrong? You look terrible. The elevator, I gasped. It's real. The stories, they're true. It takes your soul. Amanda frowned. Paula, you're not making any sense. You're probably just tired. No, listen to me. Dave, he's gone. Just a shell. I felt it too, Amanda. It tried to take me. I grabbed her hands, desperate for her to understand. Don't use that elevator, please. Take the stairs. Promise me. Amanda looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of worry and disbelief. She knew the rumors, of course, but she'd always dismissed them as silly superstitions. Now, seeing the terror in my eyes, the sheer desperation in my voice, she hesitated. Okay, she said softly. I promise. I'll take the stairs. Relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by a chilling realization. I was weak, vulnerable. And the elevator, it hadn't finished with me yet. I could feel it, a faint pull, a lingering connection. I had to do something. I couldn't let it continue to prey on the residents of Hollow Pines. But what could I do? It was just an old elevator, right? Or was it something more? I spent the next few days researching the history of Hollow Pines apartments. I scoured old newspapers, library archives, anything I could find. The building had a dark past, filled with stories of mysterious deaths, unexplained accidents, and whispers of occult practices. Then I found it. An article from the 1930s about a disgruntled elevator mechanic who had mysteriously disappeared while working on the original lift. The article mentioned a possible connection to a local cult known for their unorthodox, spiritual practices. They believed that machinery could be used as a conduit for spiritual energy. The mechanic, according to the article, was vehemently against the cult's practices and was rumored to have sabotaged their efforts. He was never seen again. A chilling thought crept into my mind. What if the mechanic's spirit was trapped within the elevator, twisted and corrupted by the cult's rituals? What if the soul snatcher wasn't just a haunted elevator, but a prison for a tormented soul, forced to drain the life force of others? I knew what I had to do. I had to find a way to free the mechanic's spirit, to break the curse that plagued the elevator. But I couldn't do it alone. I went to Amanda, explained everything I had learned. At first, she was skeptical, but my unwavering conviction and the palpable fear I carried convinced her. She agreed to help. Together, we delved deeper into the history of the cult, researching their rituals and beliefs. We discovered that they believed in using specific symbols and incantations to bind spirits to objects. We needed to find a way to reverse the process, to sever the connection between the mechanic's spirit and the elevator. But we were just two ordinary women, armed with nothing but a few books and a desperate hope. The answer, we realized, lay in the elevator itself. We needed to find the symbols the cult had used, the place where they had performed their rituals. Late one night, armed with flashlights and a crowbar, Amanda and I snuck into the building's basement. The air was thick with dampness and the smell of mildew. We found the elevator's machinery room, a labyrinth of gears, cables, and rusted metal. Hidden behind a panel, we found them. The symbols, etched into the metal floor, almost obscured by years of grime, were the same symbols we had seen in our research, the symbols of the cult. This was the place. We spent hours cleaning the symbols, retracing their lines with chalk, trying to understand their meaning. We discovered that the central symbol was a representation of a trapped soul, bound to a mechanical device. We needed to disrupt the symbol to break the binding. But how? Then Amanda had an idea. What if we use something that represents freedom, something that represents the opposite of what they were trying to do? It was a long shot, but it was the only thing we had. We found a small potted plant in the basement, a lonely survivor that had somehow managed to thrive in the darkness. We placed it in the center of the symbol, a symbol of life and growth in the heart of death and decay. Then we spoke. Not the incantations of the cult, but our own words, words of hope, of freedom, of release. We spoke of the mechanic, of the suffering he had endured, of the peace he deserved. As we spoke, the air in the room grew heavy, charged with energy. The lights flickered, and the elevator groaned and shuddered. We held our breath, waiting, praying. Then it stopped. The air cleared, the tension dissipated. A sense of profound peace filled the room. We didn't know if it had worked, not for sure. The next day, I cautiously entered the elevator. I rode it up and down several times. The ride was smooth and quiet. The unsettling feeling, the oppressive atmosphere was gone. Dave, I saw him in the lobby. He was still pale, still a little withdrawn, but there was a spark of life in his eyes that hadn't been there before. He even offered a small, tentative smile. The soul snatcher was gone. Or at least, I hope so. Maybe it was just a temporary fix. Maybe the darkness would return someday. But for now, the elevator was just an elevator, a way to get from one floor to another. And I, Paula, was no longer afraid. I had faced the darkness and I had survived. And in the process, I had learned that even in the most haunted of places, hope can still bloom. Especially with the help of a friend like Amanda. Let us know in the comments section, would you ride in an elevator that people said was haunted? Time for the next story. Guys, if you liked that last story, please don't forget to leave a like. Thank you. The old Oakhaven apartments were notorious, not for their grandeur but for their unsettling history and, more specifically, their perpetually malfunctioning elevator. Locals whispered stories about its erratic behavior, its chilling sounds, and the passengers that were said to ride unseen. The elevator was a relic, a creaking, groaning contraption with mahogany panels and a tarnished brass control panel. It was also, everyone agreed, deeply haunted. Mrs. Gable, a sweet elderly woman on the third floor, was the first to recount a truly terrifying tale. One stormy night, the power flickered, bathing the building in brief, strobe-like darkness. Mrs. Gable remembered stepping into the elevator, alone. As the doors shuttered closed, she heard a distinct whisper, "Going down?" The voice was raspy, ancient, and definitely not hers. Panic seized her. She frantically pressed the open door button, but nothing happened. The elevator began its descent, groaning like a dying beast. Between the third and second floors, the lights went out completely. Mrs. Gable, clutching her rosary, could only hear the creaking cables and the faint, ragged breathing that seemed to surround her. Then, a clammy hand brushed against her own. She screamed, a silent, choked cry, and passed out. When she awoke, she was crumpled on the lobby floor, the elevator doors wide open, the car empty. Then there was young Timmy, the paper boy. He delivered the Oakhaven papers every morning, using the elevator to reach the higher floors. One foggy morning, he entered the elevator on the ground floor. He pressed the button for the 7th floor, but the elevator, with a lurch, began descending. He pressed the button again and again, but the elevator relentlessly plummeted downwards. The numbers lit up, passing 1, then 0, then -1, -2. Timmy knew there wasn't a basement in Oakhaven. Terror gnawed at him as the elevator descended deeper and deeper, the air growing cold and heavy with a musty, earthy scent. The doors finally ground open, revealing not a basement but a long, dark corridor. The air was thick with the smell of decay, and a low, guttural chanting echoed from the shadows. Timmy didn't hesitate. He scrambled out, ignoring the unsettling silence that descended behind him as he ran back to the lobby, leaving his newspapers scattered on the floor. He never delivered papers to Oakhaven again. My own encounter with the haunted elevator happened later. I was a paranormal investigator, drawn to Oakhaven by the legends. I spent weeks researching the building's history, discovering that it had been built on the site of a former asylum where horrific experiments had been conducted. The elevator, I suspected, was a focal point for the residual energy, a conduit to something else. Armed with my equipment, I entered the elevator late one night. I ascended to the 5th floor, set up my EMF meter and audio recorder. As soon as I did, the lights began to flicker. The air turned icy cold and the EMF meter spiked wildly. Then I heard it. A child's giggle, faint and distant, followed by the distinct sound of someone dragging something heavy across the floor. I called out, "Is anyone there? Show yourself." The giggling stopped. The dragging sound ceased. The only sound was the rhythmic thump-thump-thump of my own racing heart. Then the temperature plummeted. I could see my breath fogging in the air. The shadows in the corners of the elevator seemed to deepen, coalescing into vaguely human shapes. A whisper brushed against my ear, so close I felt the phantom breath on my cheek. "We've been waiting for you." I turned, but there was nothing there. Just the cold, the shadows, and the feeling of being watched by countless unseen eyes. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, followed by an overwhelming sense of dread. I knew instinctively that I had to get out. I frantically pressed the open door button. Nothing. I pressed it again and again. Still nothing. Panic gripped me. I was trapped. The elevator began to descend, each groan and shudder amplifying my fear. The doors opened on the lobby. I bolted out, not daring to look back. I didn't stop running until I was blocks away. The image of the darkened elevator doors burned into my mind. I never returned to Oakhaven. Some places are best left undisturbed. The haunted elevator continues its lonely journey, trapping souls and whispering secrets in the dark. And those who dare to ride it may never truly escape its terrifying embrace. Time for the next story. Guys, if you liked that last story, please don't forget to leave a like. Thank you. The flickering fluorescent light above hummed a discordant tune, casting long, skeletal shadows that danced with every shudder of the ancient elevator. I gripped the cold, tarnished brass railing, my knuckles white. The air was thick with the scent of dust and decay, a smell that clung to the back of my throat like a persistent cough. This wasn't just old, this was wrong. My name is Shelley and I'm a self-proclaimed urban explorer, a thrill seeker with a penchant for the abandoned and the forgotten. Tonight I was chasing a ghost. A legend whispered through the decaying halls of the Belgrave apartments, the legend of the haunted elevator. Everyone knew the stories. Anyone who had lived in this city for more than a few years had heard them. People who used the elevator vanished, gone without a trace. The police investigated, of course, but always came up empty. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of foul play. Just gone. But the truly chilling part, the part that had burrowed its way into my mind and refused to let go, was the phone calls. Each missing person, days or sometimes weeks after their disappearance, would contact a family member. The calls were always brief, fragmented, and utterly terrifying. They described a place that defied explanation. A place of shifting landscapes, unnatural colors, and sounds that scraped against the sanity. A place that, according to the terrified voices on the other end of the line, shouldn't exist. Donna, my best friend and partner in all things reckless, fidgeted beside me, her eyes wide and darting around the claustrophobic space. Shelley, are you sure about this? This feels different. More than just spooky. I tried to sound confident, even though a knot of dread was tightening in my stomach. Relax, Donna. It's just an old elevator. Probably just gets stuck a lot. Stuck a lot with people disappearing forever? She retorted, her voice rising in pitch. Before I could answer, a third voice cut through the tension. Ladies, let's keep it down. Don't want to wake the residents, do we? William, our resident tech expert and a master of lockpicking, grinned at us from the back of the elevator. He was a wiry man with a shock of unruly gray hair and an almost childlike enthusiasm for anything mechanical. He'd been essential in getting us into the abandoned Belgrave apartments in the first place. William, I swear you're taking this way too lightly, Donna said, rolling her eyes. Lightly? I'm fascinated, he exclaimed, adjusting his glasses. Think about it, a haunted elevator. The mechanics of it. How does it work? Is it some kind of interdimensional portal? Or just a really malfunctioning cable system? The doors creaked shut with a resounding clang, plunging us into near darkness. The single flickering bulb above us cast elongated shadows that danced and swayed, turning the already unsettling atmosphere into something truly sinister. I pressed the button for the 7th floor, the floor where most of the disappearances had originated. The elevator lurched into motion with a groan that sounded like a dying animal. We ascended slowly, each creak and rattle amplifying the silence. So, Shelley, William said, breaking the tension, what's the plan once we get up there? Aside from getting swallowed by the shadow realm, of course. We look for anything unusual, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Anything that might explain the disappearances or the phone calls. The elevator reached the 7th floor with a jolt. The doors shuddered open, revealing a dimly lit hallway that stretched into the gloom. The air was even colder here, and the smell of decay was almost overwhelming. We stepped out cautiously, our flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. The hallway was lined with doors, all boarded up and covered in peeling paint. The silence was absolute, broken only by the frantic beat of my own heart. We spent the next hour systematically searching the 7th floor. We found nothing. Empty rooms, cobwebs, and the lingering scent of despair, but nothing that could explain the disappearances. Okay, maybe it's not on the 7th floor, Donna said, frustration creeping into her voice. Maybe it's in the elevator itself. I nodded, a shiver running down my spine. Let's check it out. We returned to the elevator, the silence pressing down on us like a physical weight. William started examining the control panel, searching for any anomalies. Donna and I focused on the walls, running our hands along the cold metal, looking for hidden seams or compartments. That's when I saw it. Scratched into the metal above the floor buttons, almost hidden in the shadows, was a series of symbols. They weren't letters or numbers or anything resembling a language I recognized. They were angular and unsettling, like something from a forgotten nightmare. Guys, look at this, I said, pointing my flashlight at the symbols. William and Donna crowded around me, their faces etched with concern. What is that? Donna whispered. I don't know, I replied, but I don't like it. As William reached out to touch the symbols, the elevator shuddered violently. The lights flickered and died, plunging us into absolute darkness. A blood-curdling screech of metal echoed through the shaft, followed by the sickening sound of snapping cables. We screamed. The elevator plummeted. Panic seized me. I grabbed onto the railing, bracing myself for the inevitable impact. We were going to die. We were going to become another footnote in the legend of the haunted elevator. But the impact never came. Instead, the elevator slowed, creaking and groaning like a wounded beast. It came to a stop with a jarring thud, but we were still alive. I fumbled for my lighter, my hands shaking so badly I could barely strike a flame. The tiny flicker of light revealed a scene that made my blood run cold. We weren't in the Belgrave apartments anymore. The elevator doors were open, revealing a landscape that defied reality. The air was thick and heavy, smelling of ozone and something else, something ancient and indescribably alien. Towering rock formations pierced a sky filled with swirling, iridescent clouds. The ground was covered in a phosphorescent moss that pulsed with an eerie light. What is this?" Donna stammered, her voice barely a whisper. William was silent, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and fascination. We stepped out of the elevator hesitantly, our flashlights cutting through the unnatural gloom. The silence was broken only by the faint, rhythmic hum emanating from the strange, glowing moss. "This is it," I whispered, my voice trembling. "This is where they went." We walked for what felt like hours, our flashlights our only guides through the alien landscape. The ground was uneven and treacherous, and the air grew heavier with each step. Then we heard it, a sound that made my skin crawl. A low, guttural moaning that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "What was that?" Donna whimpered, clutching my arm. "I don't know," I replied, "but I don't want to find out." We started to run, our hearts pounding in our chests. The moaning grew louder, closer. We could feel it vibrating through the ground, through our bones. Suddenly we stumbled upon a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a structure, a massive, obsidian monolith that pulsed with an inner light. The moaning seemed to be coming from the monolith. And then we saw them. Surrounding the monolith were figures, their forms twisted and distorted by the strange light. They were people, or at least they had been people. But they were different now. Their eyes were vacant, their skin stretched tight over their bones. They moved with a jerky, unnatural gait, their mouths open in silent screams. I recognized some of them. Faces I had seen in old newspaper articles, faces of the missing. They were alive, but they weren't living. They were trapped, their souls consumed by this place. One of them turned, its vacant eyes locking onto mine. A flicker of recognition sparked within its empty gaze. It raised a hand, reaching out to me. "Help." It croaked, its voice a rasping whisper. "Get out before it takes you too." Then the light intensified. The monolith pulsed with a blinding energy. The figures around it began to writhe and convulse. We turned and ran. We ran blindly, desperately, back towards the elevator. The moaning followed us, growing louder, more insistent. We could feel the presence of something ancient and malevolent closing in on us. We reached the elevator, its doors still open, a beacon of hope in the nightmarish landscape. We scrambled inside, frantically pushing the buttons. The doors slammed shut. The elevator lurched into motion. We ascended, slowly, agonizingly slowly, back towards the world we knew. The moaning faded behind us, replaced by the creaking and groaning of the ancient machinery. We emerged back into the 7th floor of the Belgrave apartments. The hallway was dark and silent, the flickering fluorescent light casting the same familiar, unsettling shadows. We ran. We didn't stop running until we were out of the building, out of the city, out of the reach of that place. I haven't been back to the Belgrave apartments since. I don't think I ever will. I still have nightmares. Nightmares of the obsidian monolith, of the twisted figures, of the moaning that echoes in my dreams. And sometimes, late at night, when the silence is broken only by the hum of the electricity, I hear a faint ringing. A ringing that sounds like a telephone. I never answer it. Because I know on the other end of that line is a voice from a place that shouldn't exist, a voice begging for release, a voice warning me to stay away. A voice that might just be my own. Let us know in the comments section, what would you do if you were in this situation?
Ready for spine-chilling tales that will haunt your thoughts? Subscribe to Forgotten Storyteller for eerie narrations, unsettling mysteries, and haunting stories you won't forget. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story, because some stories refuse to stay buried. Join us, if you dare,